Hello and welcome viewers, I'm Pia and you're watching the channel report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the headlines this hour. US President Donald Trump has stated that he does not want China to play the rare earth game with the United States, and he believes that China will end up reaching a deal on soybeans and wants China to purchase at least as much as before. The Chinese economy has registered a growth rate of 4.8% in the July to September quarter, which is the slowest annual pace in a year. It's been weighed down by slow domestic demand. This marks the weakest growth since the third quarter of 2024. A cargo plane flying from Dubai has skid off the runway into the sea at Hong Kong International Airport. 2 people inside a ground vehicle have lost their lives while 4 other crew members were rescued. Tropical storm Fengshan has hit the Philippines hard, claiming at least 8 lives. Meanwhile, over 22,000 people have been evacuated from flood and landslide-prone areas. The storm is expected to head towards China after leaving the Philippines. Gaza Civil Defense Ministry has reported at least 45 people killed in Israeli strikes yesterday. The Israeli army has resumed enforcement of the Gaza ceasefire while reporting 2 soldiers killed in southern Gaza. US President Donald Trump says that the Donbas region should remain as it is, with Russia controlling 78%. Meanwhile, US Vice President J.D. Vance has stated that Trump has not yet made a decision on sending the Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. US President Donald Trump has now warned India of massive tariffs if it does not restrict Russian oil purchases, claiming that Indian Prime Minister Modi assured him that India would not continue with the imports. Meanwhile, the Ministry of External Affairs has made it very clear that no such phone call has occurred between Modi and Trump, and that the priority of the Indian consumer is paramount. He has executed a 4-minute heist at Paris's Louvre Museum, stealing 8 priceless jewels from the French crown collection. President Macron has condemned the theft, pledging to recover the stolen works. Well, viewers, those are the headlines and our top focus. US President Donald Trump has hinted at lowering tariffs on China if Beijing can reciprocate what Washington is doing. This comes after Trump announced 100% tariffs on goods from China, along with new export controls on any and all critical software by the 1st of November. President Trump has stated that China must stop boycotting America's farmers as a negotiating point, and has stated that he does not want to hurt China with the tariffs, but expects China to reciprocate the American sentiment. Listen in.
Things I want is China's going to buy soybeans. I want China to stop with the fentanyl. Very, normal things. I don't want them to play the rare earth game with us.
But you want them to, but do you think they will make a deal on soybeans?
I do believe, yeah, because otherwise I'm not going to make a deal. No, I want them to buy. Our farmers have been boycotted by China as a negotiating point. I don't want that. Our farmers are great, and in particular our soybean farmers, and I want them to start buying soybeans, at least in the amount that they were buying before. And I believe they'll be able to do that. Right now, China's paying a tremendous amount of money in tariffs, like they've never paid before. They paid a lot during my first administration, my first term. Now they're paying an unbelievable amount of money to the United States. They probably can't pay that much, and I'm okay with that. We can lower that, but they have to do things for us too. It's no longer a one-way street.
Yeah. What would you lower it to, do you think?
Depends. We'll have to see what they want. One of the penalties we have, and because they're sending in fentanyl, we have a 20%, as you know, a 20% tariff on that. But they'd be paying about 157% tariff, which is, record-setting type tariff. I don't want them to do that. I want to help China. I'm not looking to hurt China, but they have to give us things too.
Joining us on the broadcast is Mr. Gerald Phil, economist from Dubai. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. Major sticking points emerging in this trade war, rare earths being one of them. Trump has now raked up the soybeans, and the fact that China has cut soybean imports from the United States and instead has turned to Argentina for the same. Meanwhile, we do know that Trump-Xi talks are still on the cards in Seoul. What do you expect will now transpire in the next few days?
Thank you for having me, Pia. Yes, there will be negotiations, there will be new talks. It's a bit of a game. I mean, President Trump said we do not allow, as you just showed in the report, not allow China to play the rare earths game. There's also a game from Washington's side where you say one day there will be 100% tariffs, 200% tariffs, and then 2 days later pull back and say, yes, we will have talks. They will continue. We had last week here in Dubai the biggest IT and software fair and exhibition, GITEX, and it was all about AI. AI will control everything, and these 17 rare earths are not only crucial for the defense industry, but also for the AI, for the high-tech industry.
Absolutely.
And those who have the grip on rare earths will have also the lead in AI technology and Web3 in autonomous cars and so on. So talks will continue. There will be a tit for tat verbally, but I believe what Trump says, that he doesn't want to hurt China. There will be a deal and there will be ongoing negotiations and talks in the coming days.
Indeed, and I also wanted to understand from you, how does it augur for the United States itself, considering the fact that we're witnessing a government shutdown? In the US, experts have warned that if this continues and if the blame game between the Republicans and the Democrats goes on, it's very likely that a recession could take place. At the same time, we're seeing Trump's tariff policies resulting in increased prices of commodities for the consumers. So it's some sort of a double whammy situation with recession and inflation on the anvil. How do you think the United States will have to navigate through this then?
Absolutely, and the announcement by China to impose controls on rare earths was almost simultaneously when Trump announced his big victory in relation to the Gaza negotiations and said we have reached a ceasefire in Gaza, which was broken obviously by both sides now in the last days, as you said in your earlier day news report. Now, this is not only a double whammy, I would even say a triple whammy, because now his foreign policy is also not in shambles, I would say, but it's not that shining as it used to be. And the probability of a recession, as you mentioned, is of course higher. You see it in oil prices. The price for the barrel for 159 liters of Brent just hit $60 per barrel, and that's almost a 5-year low. It's towards the 5-year low, which shows there's stress in the market. There would be less demand for logistics, for trade, and the global economy has here some ripples, some damage already taken.
All right, so I request you to stay on with us as we're tracking some other rather crucial developments from China. We're now learning that China's economic growth has slowed to the weakest pace in a year in the third quarter as a property crisis and trade tensions are hurting demand, leaving policymakers with the daunting challenge of rebalancing GDP drivers towards greater consumption over time. Now, data showcases that China's GDP has grown 4.8% in the July to September quarter. This is slowed from the 5.2% recorded in the second quarter earlier this year. Now, renewed trade tensions with Washington have highlighted vulnerabilities of China's economy, which relies rather heavily on manufacturing and overseas demand as well. All of this has raised expectations that Chinese leaders may embrace changes to rebalance growth towards domestic consumption. Still with us on the broadcast is Mr. Gerald Ulfil. We are witnessing a property crisis in China. There were some rather shocking visuals of a lot of these high-rise buildings that were constructed being demolished as well. At the same time, apart from its domestic demand reducing, China is also facing pressure from the United States of America. We also know that the Chinese leadership is drafting the 15th five-year plan. How do you think they should go about doing this, and what, in your assessment, should be incorporated so that the growth bounces back?
Yes, China faces multiple challenges here in this case. As you mentioned, the property sector, which needs support, which has received already state support. If I was China, I would invest in existing infrastructure. I was in China, for example, earlier in August, and I give an example. The Shanghai International Airport is now massively expanded. You can see it when you take off, and it's fantastic to see. But this is new investment. This is new infrastructure. However, the existing infrastructure needs also a revamp. Roads have to be renovated. Streets have to be renovated. We need also more renovation in the ports in China. Also, China should stop the brain drain. Many young Chinese still want to work abroad, go abroad, study abroad. Sometimes they come back, sometimes they stay. But China should make China great again by showing this is a place to be for the young generation to pursue the career at home. And regarding the pressure from the US, this is true, this is in place, but this will bring China and India much closer together as we saw before. We saw the détente between China and India. We saw the visit by His Excellency Mr. Modi in Beijing during the military parade. So this will continue, that China will reach out to his closer allies like China and Russia anyway. But also the Belt and Road Initiative will be strengthened. The new Silk Road, which brings together, economically integrates China with South Asia, East Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and Europe.
And indeed, I also wanted to understand from you, considering the fact that, the Chinese manufacturing sector is so integrated with the global markets as well, how could then the statistic that we're seeing then reflect, and what are its implications for the global supply chains?
The global supply chains have to be strengthened from all sides. There must be also easing of tariffs or removal of roadblocks and restrictions from, for example, the European Union, from India, of course, or India started already. There will be now direct flights again between China and India. So the global supply chain must be in place in order to avoid a hard landing of the global economy. But the integration of manufacturing, as you say, must be strengthened also by China, must be further developed, and must be increased in relation to productivity. That can be done, and this is already done through AI, through drones, through robotics. China is leading in delivery drones globally, and also in robotics, intelligent robotics in the industrial sector. So this is not only a duty to be done by China, but also by other parts of the world, the main trade partners in Europe, in the Middle East, for example, but also from the United States.
All right, so with that, I would like to thank you for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. With that, viewers, we shift our focus to more developments. We're now learning that Chinese President Xi Jinping has urged greater efforts towards reunification in a congratulatory message to the new head of Taiwan's main opposition party, whose election has now come amid allegations of Chinese interference. Former Taiwan Legislative One member Cheng Li-Wu will assume leadership of the Kuomintang Party, or the KMT, on the 1st of November. He won the election amid growing tensions between China and Taiwan, the former, which claims the democratically governed island as its own. Taiwan's government has rejected China's claims over its sovereign territory. Meanwhile, the KMT traditionally supports stronger ties with China and is seen as a preferred dialogue partner by Beijing. China, meanwhile, has refused to engage with Taiwanese President Lai Ching-te and the Democratic Progressive Party government, labeling it a separatist government. Xi Jinping, in his role as the head of China's Communist Party, has told Cheng that both parties should strengthen their common political foundation. He's in fact added that both parties should unite the broad majority of people in Taiwan to deepen exchanges and cooperation, promote common development, and advance national reunification. Cheng, meanwhile, in a message to Xi Jinping, did not mention any union with China, but stated that both sides of the Taiwan Strait are members of the Chinese nation. With us on the broadcast is Ms. Venus Upadhyay. She is a Taiwanese affairs expert joining us from Taipei. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. A lot is being said about this messaging itself as it comes as these elections are taking place, whether it is simple posturing or not. It's of course taking place as we're seeing increased aggression along the median line itself. And I wanted to understand from you, how is then Xi Jinping's renewed call for reunification being perceived by the public and political leaders within Taiwan, particularly in light of the recent opposition leadership changes?
Thank you, Pia. And it's lovely to be here this morning. Actually, whatever is happening right now is not happening for the first time. It has happened before. These kind of statements from both sides of the strait have happened earlier also. KMT's stand has been the same. So with the new opposition leader, obviously, the statement that Chinese leader Xi Jinping gave yesterday was obviously reiterating what China has said earlier as well, and what has been the KMT stand earlier as well. So there's basically no change in it. But yes, it's a repetition of it. It's a reinforcing of the same China one policy. And it's repeating the same stand that KMT has had for long. Now, since Xi Jinping's statement has just come yesterday, today the Taiwanese newspapers haven't yet carried much of analysis as to what the Taiwanese people are thinking. So I think we can wait for a week and, say how the media responds here or how the people are reacting. But actually, the truth is that Taiwan's domestic politics kind of reflects a lot. If you see, the national government is led by DPP, and a lot of local governments are basically led by the KMT. So I think the Taiwanese are a very, very politically aware population, and they understand, they understand the cross-strait politics much more than anybody else in the world, because they are experiencing it day in and day out. And as I said, this is not the first time that they're facing any messaging like this from across the strait or from within the, politicians from within Taiwan.
Indeed, and I also wanted to understand, given the current geopolitical climate and Taiwan's growing ties, especially with Western allies such as the United States, how should then the new opposition leadership navigate this pressure from China without undermining Taiwan's democratic values?
You see, Taiwanese domestic politics is a very complex, dynamic, dynamic sphere, I would say. And I would also say that a lot of narrative about Taiwan in the media is always about cross-strait affairs, whereas I think there is very less focus on the domestic politics. I'm talking about the international media, the domestic politics of Taiwan. And if you look at the entire running of affairs here, you see that, the next year there's going to be another election, and that's what the newly elected leader has also said, that she's going to focus more on that. So next year's election would elect the mayors and the councillors in various cities and towns, So now another thing that has happened in Taiwan is there was something happening called vote recall, So where you go around Taiwan, you go around Taipei, outside a lot of subway stations, you're actually seeing people with these placards where they were recalling the elected legislatures, and these legislatures from both the parties. So, there were recall campaigns for the DPP legislatures, and there were recall campaigns for the KMT legislatures. And this was a very interesting democratic process, So just because one political party in Taiwan is saying that it believes in, reunification, and it believes in a certain narrative on China, that doesn't mean that Taiwan becomes any less democratic society, So from 1997 onwards, Taiwan has made a lot of efforts to strengthen its democratic institutions. It had that space to basically make a lot of experiments. So I don't really see that in any way the democratic institutions in Taiwan are suffering because, certain statements or certain messages coming like that. I would say that this has been a long-term stand. This is not the first time this messaging has come. It has come before also. So I think we should make more effort in understanding from now onwards is in the next elections, how would this reflect, whatever messaging is coming, how would this reflect and what is the mandate that public would give next year? That would give a clear picture.
Indeed, as you've mentioned, we've seen this sort of cross-strait rhetoric earlier as well. So I wanted to understand from you, then, is this mere posturing on Beijing's end, or because experts have recently warned that China is preparing to invade Taiwan, is this then indicative of more to come in the upcoming years?
See, as I said, such a messaging is not new. It has happened before. Xi Jinping himself has, said the same thing many times before. KMT has said the same thing many times before. So again, I'm saying that this is not the first time such a messaging is coming. And I think for the past many, many years, all of us have been hearing about this, expected or the estimated time frame of when this Taiwanese invasion is going to happen. And somewhere it's a reality as well, because when you're living in Taiwan, you see that, there are a lot of public exercises that the government has scheduled during the year when the, government prepares its population for any kind of a war scenario, whether they are air raids or, the sirens blow, the messages come on your phone. And there are many mock drills, public mock drills, civil and government coordination mock drills, defense civil coordination mock drills that happen across Taiwan. So I think Taiwan as a society, what is very fascinating about this society is, they're just like 2.3 million people, 23 million people, 2.3 crore people. And, you look at their scientific advancement, you look at their technological advancement, their trade advancement, their foreign reserves are over $400 billion. This is about $100 billion less than India, which is a population of over 1.4 billion people. And so in that way, we have to look at the geopolitics that frames Taiwan. And even when you say about geopolitics and you start to understand Taiwan from the U.S. perspective, and we have to obviously consider semiconductors. We obviously have to consider Taiwan's tech advancement.
Yes.
So I think Taiwan is a very, very dynamic society. I think it's like a gray zone society. It knows how to survive. It has learned how to survive. It has survived all this while. These calls for invasion, reunification, is not new. Taiwan's process to become democracy hasn't been an easy process itself. So I think Taiwanese appreciate that. The Taiwanese know that. The Taiwanese also understand the reality of invasion and threats from across the border. And I think day in and day out in their life, they have learned how to address it, how to face it, and how to survive. And they are surviving. Look at other countries of the world who have faced such kind of threats. Who has such kind of scientific advancement or such kind of foreign reserves or such kind of wealth. The average salary per person in Taiwan is almost about 30,000 NDT. It's between 29,000 NDT, 30,000 NDT, which comes to close about 90,000 Indian rupees. And so that's the kind of advancement, that has happened. So I think the world should not just look at this Taiwan from this frame of, what is happening across the strait and what are the messaging that is coming. I think that that'll keep on happening, until and unless this cross-strait geopolitics remains. So Taiwan, the position and the location of Taiwan in the Indo-Pacific is vital to many countries, is vital to the world.
Absolutely.
So in this geopolitical frame, China is not going to stop giving the messages it will give. China will obviously, PRC will obviously root for its interest and its agendas and its policies. And Taiwan, in the current geopolitical frame, will always obviously root for wherever it perceives its interest. But that doesn't mean that the domestic politics of Taiwan is going to be anyway, less contested or less exciting or, less whatever say. There's a lot of polarity, obviously. There's a lot of polarity of messages. So I think we should widen our perspectives on Taiwan and look at Taiwan's domestic politics, look at Taiwan's process of how its democracy has evolved, look at how Taiwan's semiconductor or industrial development has happened, since 1997, since it became a democracy. And then I think we should widen our perspective as to how this Taiwanese society has survived, and not only survived, but prospered amidst such calls of invasion or threats or reunification or, from whatever narrative perspective you call it, whether you take China's narrative or you take, the free world narrative, the Taiwanese have survived and thrived. So I think we should try to understand that. And then in that perspective, we should try to understand Taiwan's domestic politics.
Absolutely. With that, I'd like to thank you, ma'am, for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. With that, viewers, we're shifting our focus towards Japan. We're now learning that Japan's Liberal Democratic Party and the Japan Innovation Party will sign a coalition agreement later today, setting the stage for the formation of a new government. Now, according to Hirofumi Yoshimura, the co-leader of the JIP, the agreement will reportedly be signed at 6 p.m. local time. This coalition deal will enable Sanae Takaichi to become Japan's first female prime minister. Now, this agreement in itself has been reached after extensive discussions between Takaichi and Yoshimura, including a phone call this morning where Yoshimura proposed the final terms of the deal. Now, once signed, the new coalition will proceed with a vote on Takaichi's appointment as Prime Minister, which is scheduled for tomorrow. Although the coalition is 2 seats short of a majority in the lower house, Takaichi is expected to win the vote in a second round runoff. Additionally, the new coalition deal also includes political measures, such as a plan to lower the consumption tax rate on food to 0 from the current rate of up to 10%. Moreover, the JIP has demanded the abolition of corporate and organizational donations, which the LDP has now accepted. Another key policy proposal is the cutting of parliament seats, which appears to be a non-negotiable condition for JIP's entry into the coalition. This development, of course, comes days before US President Donald Trump is scheduled to visit Japan, and also comes prior to the APEC summit in South Korea. With us on the broadcast is Dr. Satoru Nagao, fellow at the Hudson Institute, joining us from Tokyo. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. We of course see a very crucial development coming in as far as the coalition government and setting this up in the first place is concerned as well. I wanted to understand from you, what are the implications of forming this sort of government which lacks full majority in the lower house? What sort of stability can we expect from it?
Stability rely on the majority or not. And in this case, traditional coalition partner Komeito has already left from the Liberal Democratic Party, which is the biggest ruling party, but lost the majority. So that's why they need to find alternative coalition partner, and the Japan Innovation Party agreed to join this instead of the Komeito Party. So that's why this is good news. But at the same time, even if the Liberal Democratic Party cooperate with Japan Innovation Party, indeed this is not a majority. Indeed, only the 2 seats, but 2 seats is lacking to get the majority. So that's why the case-by-case basis, the Liberal Democratic Party and the Japan Innovation Party needs one more party to get the majority. So that's why the currently is from the opposition party, 3 small, 1 middle-sized party and 2 small party could be the candidate, and the case-by-case basis they will cooperate with them. In this case, is it a stable government or not? Is rely on how to cooperate with these three parties. So that's why still the Mr. Takaichi, who will be the prime minister, needs the negotiation skill to persuade these three opposition parties case by case basis.
Indeed, and I've also read out the fact that the JIP has made a list of demands such as cutting of parliamentary seats, banning corporate donations as well. How might this then affect, because they've pointed out that these are non-negotiating points. So if Takaichi does go about bringing these reforms, I want to understand from you, how could this then affect the electoral system itself of Japan in the long run?
In this case, Japan Innovation Party is, of course, Japan's national party, but indeed their supporter is concentrated in the Kansai area, one of the area of Japan. Osaka, Kyoto, these cities are located. Population is relatively big, but only the Kansai area they got the support. In other area of Japan, there is no support for them. So that's why even if the Japan Innovation Party demand to reduce the number of the members, total number of the parliament, national diet, in this case, there's a possibility that reducing places could be a little bit regional basis. So, of course, under the current negotiation, of course, they should not rely on the place to reduce the member of the parliament. It's regional basis. They try to not regional. They try to more equal manner. They try to do that. But at the same time, based on their support, based on the fact, coalition partners' supporter is concentrated in the Kansai area, maybe LDP will concede the seat in this area to the Japan Innovation Party. It's relatively feasible. So that could happen, I think.
And I also wanted to understand from you, because another condition put forth by the Japan Innovation Party is reducing the consumption tax on food to zero. Then how could this impact revenue generation for the new government?
And the feature of the consumption tax is rich or poor is not a matter. If they buy something, they need to pay. So to promote the economy, of course, the poor people can buy more food or living something, could contribute, and they will support in the election, support the ruling party in the election. That could be the influential. So that's why consumption tax matter is a little bit popular in Japan. So Japan Innovation Party is demanding, and LDP will accept it in the future. But at the same time, problem is how to find alternative source of income. So in this case, they need to raise the tax in the other area is needed. Without this, national debt will increase, but in case of Japan, national debt is very big, so that's why it is not easy to increase national debt so much. That is a problem.
All right, sir. With that, I'd like to thank you for taking out time explaining to our viewers what's transpiring in Japan amidst all of these high-octane developments. With that, viewers, we're shifting our focus to more news coming in. We're now learning that a cargo plane flying from Dubai has skidded off the runway and into the sea while landing at Hong Kong International Airport early this morning. The aircraft was a Boeing 747 operated under Emirates flight number EK9788. It was carrying no cargo but did have 4 crew members on board. We're now learning that all of the crew members have been rescued safely. However, local police has reported that 2 people inside a ground vehicle near the runway have been struck by the aircraft, and both individuals have been declared dead. Visuals emerging from the scene show that the aircraft was partially submerged in water near the airport sea wall, with its nose and tail sections separated. Additionally, the escape slide can be seen deployed, and the north runway has now been closed after the accident. Meanwhile, we are learning that the south and central runways at the Hong Kong International Airport continue to operate. The airport itself has confirmed that weather and runway conditions were safe at the time of the accident. Furthermore, authorities have launched an investigation into the cause behind this accident, looking into several factors such as the aircraft system, maintenance and operations. Listen in to what the Executive Director of the airport operations had to say.
Around 4 a.m. this morning, a cargo aircraft, flight UAE 9788, departing from Dubai to Hong Kong, ran off from the rough runway upon landing and crashed through the fencing and into the sea. Unfortunately, an airport security patrol car was there at that time. The aircraft collided with the patrol car and pushed the car into the sea. 4 aircraft crew on board and quickly rescued by Fire Service Department. Fire Service Department also rescued 2 security staff from the sea. One was certified dead at the hospital, another certified dead at the sea.
Shifting focus to the Philippines, we're now learning that tropical storm Fengshan, known locally as Ramil, slammed into northern and central Philippines on Sunday, claiming at least 8 lives. Authorities have evacuated over 22,000 people from flood and landslide-prone areas, and we're also learning that 3 others in the meantime are injured and 2 people remain missing after a landslide took place in southern Bukidnon. 5 people have died in Quezon province when a tree fell on them. Search and rescue teams, meanwhile, continue to look for missing victims. The storm itself, which brings winds of up to 65 kilometers per hour, is expected to exit the Philippines and head towards China very soon. With that, viewers, it's a wrap on the China Report on NewsX World. Stay tuned for more such developments as we slip into a quick shot.